Good morning. Thank you for joining us in this Bible devotional series. Be thou an example. This morning we're beginning the last section in our devotional series. We've looked previously at several different texts. Let me give you the ones we've looked at. We've looked at Titus 2, 6, 7, and 8, and we saw the reasons why we need to set the example for others. In 1 Timothy 4, 22 and 1 Timothy 4, 12 and 13, we've seen the details of what living a proper example in the lives of others was all about. In 1 Peter 2, 21 through 25, we saw our need to follow the example of Christ. And now in our final division in this Bible devotional series, we're going to be looking at Romans 12, 1 and 2. And we'll be seeing in these two verses what perhaps is the key to being successful in setting an example for others. As we saw in our last text, in the 1 Peter text, 1 Peter 2, 21 through 25, we saw by following the example of Christ, we will automatically set the example for others. And that, I think, is probably the most important principle to get out of this whole devotional series. But I got to say, Romans 12, 1 and 2 is right up there as well. One of the keys to being successful in doing all of these things is understanding our proper position before Christ. And here's what I mean by that. Look at Romans 12, 1 and 2. Folks, we have to have the right attitude about setting the example for others. If we don't have the right attitude about these things, we are destined to fail. Here in Romans 12, 1 and 2, we find the Bible giving us the perfect attitude we should have when we approach this whole concept of following Christ and setting the example for others. Our attitude means a whole lot in this thing. Well, let's look at Romans 12, 1 and 2. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Okay, folks, as we go down through these verses, we're going to be seeing the perfect attitude we should have if we're going to be successful in following Christ and setting the example for others. Look at Romans 12, verse 1. I beseech you, in other words, I humbly ask you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Paul, as he writes to Roman believers, he first of all reminds them, when it comes to serving the Lord and living a self-sacrificial life, giving of ourselves to Christ for others, one of the first keys to remember is this. If we're able to do this, it is entirely of God's mercy. Notice it says, by the mercies of God. Folks, we cannot do this of our own strength. We cannot do this of our own power. We cannot simply will ourselves to submit to Christ, and you know what? We'll set the right example for others in the meantime. Not at all. We have to humbly recognize, if I'm able to follow Christ like I should, therefore, if I'm able to set the proper example for others like I should, this thing is going to be God being merciful to me, nothing more, nothing less. Because I have nothing in myself. I have no ability to do this of my own. So what should our attitude be when it comes to following the example Christ has set? An attitude of recognition, Lord, I need you to do this. I cannot do this on my own. Just like salvation, Lord, I can't save myself. I can't bring myself to turn from my own sins and approach you. Lord, in the same way I need you, if 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 I'm going to be able to follow your example, I'm going to need you, dear Lord, to give me the strength and the ability to do this, because I cannot find it in myself. We need that type of an attitude, a humble attitude, recognizing we can't, but the Lord can. Folks, as we live our life today, and if you do find yourself submitting to the example of Christ, and if you find yourself following his example, if you find yourself setting a good example for others around you, one of the first things out of our mouth then should be, thank you, Lord, because I know this is of you. This is you working in my heart. It's not something I'm doing where I get a prideful heart about this thing and I'm better than others because I'm following Christ better than other people. Just the opposite, Lord. Thank you. You've chosen to work this miracle in me, allowing me to follow you and setting the example for others.